Good morning, and welcome to another episode of the Sacred Roots podcast. Today, I have decided to dive into my personal experience, my recommendations as well with plant medicine. So, you might know or not know this, but I have done 7 ayahuasca ceremonies, and I've hosted a retreat myself at my family's house in Belgium, and I've co-organized a retreat, ayahuasca retreat in Nicaragua. And so I have a lot of experience and connection with plant medicine. And a lot of people come to me asking me for advice, for recommendations. And so I thought, well, you know what? I'm just going to do an episode. So I don't need to repeat myself a 10th time. And I can just send people to this episode. And I also know that many of you are actually curious of what ayahuasca is, how it works, what are the plant medicines are. And it's become so trendy now that I also think we have to be careful and really pay attention to why we are doing this, who we're doing it with, and where we're doing it. So I'm going to be answering all these questions in this juicy episode. But first, I want to give you my opinion on why I believe ayahuasca is so trendy and everybody talks about it. We are really in a global awakening. People are tired of hiding, tired of being someone they're not. Maybe this is you. You're tired of being in your corporate job. You're tired of being someone that you've just been expected to be or behaves in ways that you have told you needed to behave. You know, all these external pressures that we have on our shoulders and that are keeping us small and disconnected from our authentic self. And we are really tired of it. And so sometimes we don't really know how to get out of it. And we look for an easy exit with plant medicine because we're hoping that ayahuasca, peyote, or other plants are going to give us answers. And while it is true that ayahuasca really helps you to connect with yourself, it's also a very intense medicine. And you can actually find these answers inside of you without having to go through a ceremony. But I do believe that ayahuasca has been awakening people and helping people to connect with their highest selves and their souls for centuries. And so that's why now it's become so famous and trendy. And, you know, I had my first ceremony 4 years ago and people were starting to talk about it, but now really it's everywhere. And with everything that becomes trendy and more famous and attracts attention, there are people who are trying to benefit from that and who are really making it a business. So while I do believe that money is a beautiful energy and that when you have a lot of money, you have more power and you can change more things in your life and in the life of others around you, you do have to be careful to who you are doing a ceremony with. Because there are some self-proclaimed shamans who are going to give you ayahuasca, who buy it on the black market, and who just let you go on a very intense trip on your own, and then you got to figure it out. The truth is that the true medicine is not the ayahuasca, it's the shaman. The true medicine is not the ayahuasca, it's the shaman. So you got to make sure that you are choosing the right shaman to do this ceremony with. Because this is not a light ceremony. I'm going to be sharing about my experience after. But first, I really want to give you some recommendations around ayahuasca before you even consider doing a ceremony. So my first recommendation would really be to know who you're doing this ceremony with. Who is the shaman? Are there people you know that are doing the ceremony with you? Who sent you there? Are these people trustworthy? Some shaman, you know, they don't ask enough money for it, I believe. It's not so much about the money. It's really about their experience, how they got trained, Is it something they learned recently, or is it something they've been doing for 25 years? And of course, if you do it in South America, it's always better than in the US or North America or in Europe. Or, I mean, when I did the retreat in Europe with my friends and at my place, it was with a shaman that was coming from South America, and he has loads of experience. So I knew I was really doing this with someone that I deeply, deeply, deeply trust. And so I would really advise you to like have a background check of the shaman you're doing it with. Don't just jump on the first opportunity. My second recommendation would be to check on your intention. Why do you want to do an ayahuasca ceremony? Because intentions are so important. Your intention is the signature of your energy. And as you know, we live in a world of energies. And so your ceremony is going to be very different depending on the intention you do it with. So what is your intention? Are you there to release some trauma? Are you there because you want to be shown some things that might be holding you back in your life or in your business? Are you desiring to do a ceremony to connect with your highest purpose? Like really have a very clear intention of why do you want to do the ceremony? Because if you're just doing it to discover and to have fun, well, you're not going to get much from the ceremony, to be honest. And it would be a waste of your time. The second recommendation for you is really to have a very strict diet before you do the ceremony, because all the things that you eat, what you're actually doing, the process that is happening in your body when you're eating is that you are taking in the energy from these elements. Elements is not really an English word. I think it's a French word, from the food you're eating. So you're taking in the energy from the food that you're eating. So if you're eating an apple that is organic, for example, and that has been growing in your garden, it probably has a lot of beautiful, loving energies. But if you're eating an apple that is, genetically modified and that grew up in a big farm that is really only being grown in order to be sold, then it doesn't have the same energy. Because, I mean, now we're really getting into a whole energy conversation, but whatever you create has your energy. So these podcasts that I'm creating for you, they have my energy. Of course, you can hear my voice, but it's more than that. You're receiving some of my energy. You're getting into my energy field and connecting to my energy and receiving my energy into your energy field. That's why we say that it is so important to pay attention to what you're listening to, the music, also you're listening to the movies you're watching, the books you're reading, the programs you're following, courses you're doing, because you are receiving the energy from the creator, from the person who created these. And we live in a world of energies, and we're all like magnets and taking each other's energies in. And so if you're eating an apple that is organic, or an apple that has been, was grown just to be sold, you're going to be getting a very different energy, because one, you have the energy of Mother Nature herself. The other one, you have a more human, manipulated, money-focused energy that is going within your body. So it is not nourishing you the same way. And then also, depending on the soil where it was grown, it's going to have more or less nutrients, more or less pesticides and qualities for your body, etc. But basically, if you keep that in mind, the things that you are going to eat are going to really influence your energy field and your body physically, emotionally, and spiritually. Mentally as well, actually. And ayahuasca has her own energy. She is known to be the grandmother, the energy of the snake, the serpent. And so we want to make sure that when you're welcoming the grandmother snake inside your body, that your body is as clean, as pure as possible, so that the medicine can do its best work inside of you. If you've been eating chocolate, meat, having had lots of alcohol, maybe even smoked weed, that is really going to interfere with the medicine, and you're going to have a very intense, I don't want to say bad because I don't want to put like a negative or positive judgment on that because I don't believe in such thing, but you're going to have a very intense experience. And grandmother the snake is going to tell you, you didn't respect yourself by putting all this in yourself, and you didn't respect me by not preparing the terrain to welcome me. So I'm insisting on this point, but it is so important to do the 5 to 7 days of diet where you eat vegetarian and even vegan and as much as possible organic food and have lots of water. And of course, if you're taking any kind of medication, make sure that it is also not going to interfere with ayahuasca, because I know that if you're taking antidepressant and you take ayahuasca, it can mess up with your brain. Like seriously, don't do that. I've not experienced myself because I don't take antidepressants, but heard of some intense stories from the shaman I'm actually working with, that I did the ceremonies with. Yeah, you just don't want to do that. Nobody died. Nothing terrible happened of that kind of, level, but just bad things do happen when you mess up with antidepressants and ayahuasca, and you're not supposed to take ayahuasca when you're taking these pills. So I think you got the message. I was pretty firm on that one. So now, next recommendation would be to check where you're going to do the ceremony. The shaman is going to probably take you somewhere, and my recommendation would be to do it outside in nature. Every single ceremony I've done was under the stars, around the fire, and it makes your experience so different than being inside 4 walls with like no fire. I mean, it's completely different. Again, there is a different energy when you're between 4 walls or outside in nature. And you really want to be communing with nature as much as you can while doing plant ceremonies. It's also beautiful to, be in the dark, see the stars. I did it one day in August and we could see all the shooting stars. It was so beautiful. I felt so connected to the cosmos. And I actually had a lot of visions of like planet Earth and the cosmos during that ceremony. So that was really cool. But then it's the end of the ceremony and the sun is rising. And I mean, it is so special. It's really uncomparable to doing it inside. So if you have the option, the opportunity to do it outside, really, that's like, just go ahead because it's so much better. And then my last recommendation is maybe something that you're not going to hear from a lot of other people that have done ayahuasca or people that talk about their experiences. I would really invite you to listen to your body regarding the quantity of ayahuasca that you're going to take in. Because the shaman is going to give you like a small, tiny shot glass with ayahuasca in it. And that might be not enough for you. And that might be too much for you. Everybody is different. And when I say too much, I mean, again, nothing bad is going to happen, but you are going to have a very intense experience. And some people are seeking that intense experience. So if you want to be hard on yourself, well, that's on you. That's your decision. But personally, I didn't know that the first time. And so I just took the normal quantity that everyone was having. And I had a very intense experience. It was beautiful in the end, but the beginning was quite hard. I'm going to tell you more about that. And now I know myself, I know my body, I know I'm very sensitive. I mean, I'm an energy healer, I'm an empath, I'm an intuitive. I have some psychic abilities, so I don't need that much to astral travel and to connect to my highest self. And even for my body, it becomes too much. It's the same with alcohol or the same with weed. I have a little bit and whew, I'm gone. And so I know my limits. I learned it a hard way because I wasn't respecting myself for a long time. I always wanted to be the strong one, showing that I was a warrior. And I was always going for like more alcohol, more ayahuasca, more food. I was just going for more because that's just how I thought I had to show up in the world. But now I have really come to embrace my sensitivity and seen it as a gift. And so I know that I'm a sensitive being. So the last times I've been taking ayahuasca, I always started with a small quantity, and the shaman knows now. So he just gives me half a shot. He's like, yeah, I know, Ele, you're sensitive. We're not giving you a full one. We don't want to see you sick everywhere again. You don't need that much. So it's really cool because, you know, we've done so many ceremonies together now that he really knows me, and he adapts to me as well. So you also want to make sure that you have a shaman that is doing that, and that is adapting to your needs. So these are my recommendations before you actually do the ceremony. Now I also have recommendations for after, because when your ceremony is over, the journey is not over. And if you stop it there, well, then you will have lost the whole purpose of doing ayahuasca. And so these two recommendations are actually even more important than all the other ones I just gave you before. My first recommendation is to do an integration. Some shamans do it, some don't. What we usually do is that we sit in circle, we express our experiences, what went well, what was difficult. And it's really beautiful when we are sitting in circle and listening to everybody's experience, because what happens is that we start to see how one person healing in the circle actually helped another one. We had this beautiful ceremony where my boyfriend at the time, now husband, Rich, has a huge fear of singing. And he decided to sing during that ceremony because that was part of his intention, to face his fear of being seen and getting out of his comfort zone. And so he took my guitar, because I always take my guitar and I sing during the ceremonies with the shaman. He took my guitar and started singing the only song that he knows, which is a song from Ben Harper, Walk Away. And it was really beautiful to see that he really got over his fear. And once the song was finished, there's a girl that was sitting a bit further that started crying. And she shared during that talking circle, integration circle, she shared with us that him singing that song made her realize that she had to change something in her life, in her relationship with her partner. And it really helped her get clarity on her next move. And so it was so beautiful to see how the only song that he knew how to play on the guitar were the exact lyrics that she needed to hear. And so him stepping over his fear and daring to follow through on his intention was healing for someone else. And that happens every single time. And it is so beautiful, really so beautiful to see. So make sure that you have an integration circle. And if you don't, make sure that you have an integration with yourself. I mean, I would even say if you have an integration circle, also make sure that you have an integration with yourself. What is one thing that you are remembering from the ceremony? One thing that you're taking into your life, one thing that you are deciding to change, or one thing that you're deciding to let go of in order to leave room to something new. It's so important, so important to integrate these ceremonies, because If you don't integrate them, then it's just going to be a waste of your time, honestly. And then you're going to be seeking for something else to help you, something else to support you. And you're just going to hop from one ceremony to another, one coach to another, one book to another. And you're just never going to get anywhere. And that integration depends on you. So be a responsible, sovereign, self-loving human being that really wants to make the most out of your life and integrate that ceremony. Make the changes that the plant medicine asked you to do. And if you didn't have an intense ceremony or if you didn't receive any messages, maybe there's also a lesson in there. I'm going to talk about that after. The second recommendation that I have for you after the ceremony, and that is also something that you're not going to hear a lot, is to close your energy field. So I'm an energy healer, a Reiki master, a SAM practitioner. I've trained in energy healing for 3 years. I've read tons of books on the topic. And what happens when you're doing an ayahuasca ceremony is that you're traveling in the astral plane. Okay, your body is, of course, there on a physical earthly plane, but your soul is traveling. And so you can always set an intention before the ceremony as well to only encounter the highest energies and frequencies. But make sure to close your energy field after a ceremony because your energy field is going to be open because of that journey that you've been on. So how do you do that? You can go and see an energy healer, of course, or you can use some lavender essential oil that you put on your palms. You stand on the grass, 2 feet on the floor, and you set the intention of closing your energy field. You start with your hands in front of your heart, and then you lift your hands on top of your heads. And you open your arms and you really see a beautiful bubble of light. And you go very, very, very slowly. And you close your energy field like that. And you go all the way around your auric field with your arms wide open from your head to your shoulders to your hips. And then you bend your knees and you bring your hands to the floor and to your feet. And then your energy field is going to be closed. And that is very important because we don't want any parasites or any beings that would want to suck your energy. I don't want to scare you here. We all have parasites on our energy field, like full transparency, but that's okay. It's just part of knowing that there's lots of invisible things happening all around us. There's nothing to be afraid of. It's just important to know it so that you can have a regular spiritual, energetical practice to keep your energy to yourself, right? We don't want to be leaking our energy. So really, these are 2 super important recommendations that I have for you for after the ceremony. All right, so you want to know what my experience was with ayahuasca, my first ceremony? I'm going to tell you everything about it, but to be honest, I am actually recording this second part of this episode an hour later. I just realized I had booked a massage, so I had to run away, cycle away, actually. I took my bicycle to go for a massage. And now I am feeling so blissful, so abundant, so joyful. The sun is shining. And I just realized that it's been 1 year since I released my first episode of the Sacred Roots podcast. So today, and when you're listening to this, it's actually 1 year and 1 week, is the anniversary of the Sacred Roots podcast. Another baby of mine that is turning 1. This is so cool. So another reason to feel blissful, to celebrate my business, my journey, everything that I have received. Because today we are also at 4,500 downloads. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Without you, I wouldn't be doing this podcast because I wouldn't have anyone to talk to. So thank you, you that is listening to this while you're walking, while you're in your bath, while you're in your living room chilling. Thank you so much for listening to me, for coming back to the Sacred Roots podcast. And I would love if you could let me know why you're listening to this, why you love the Sacred Roots so much by actually leaving a review on Apple or on Spotify so that I can hear from you. And that would be a beautiful birthday gift to be receiving. All right. So now I'm going to share with you more about my experience with ayahuasca. So the first time I encountered the grandmother was about 4 years ago now. So exactly 4 years ago, I was in India doing a yoga teacher training. And little did I know that my whole life was about to change completely. I was married at the time for 5 months. And I thought I was going to come home to a loving husband and we were going to keep on going, living our life and building the dreams that we had together. Except that when I got home, he was very different than usual. And basically, we got into a whole conversation where he told me that he didn't miss me, that he realized he didn't love me, and that we shouldn't have gotten married. I don't know if this is grammatically correct, but you understood what I mean. And so, long story short, we divorced. I then found out there was someone else, but I was also responsible of getting into a marriage and a relationship that was not the right relationship for me. It's easy to blame him and be like, "Oh, he's the bad guy. He cheated on me and he left." Well, he cheated on me because things weren't as perfect as we thought they were. And that was his way of escaping and feeling alive. Anyways, this is not really, I'm sidetracking myself completely here. But I really felt at that point that my whole life was collapsing. I felt like there was a whole building that just fell on me. I was crying nonstop because I was like, I don't like my job anymore. I'm not married anymore. We're going to sell our flat. Like, what am I to do with my life? Seriously. And so it was a huge void, a lot of uncertainty, and a lot of tears. And after 4 weeks of just being home and not being able to work and really just being super low, going through all these emotions, I thought, okay, I have to get out of here, because when you're getting divorced 5 months after being married, I can assure you that a lot of people ask you and talk about you and call you to be like, what's going on? How did that happen? And I was just a bit tired of being in this whole drama and being not the center of the attention, but having all that attention on me, I guess. And so this friend of mine, living in Nicaragua, having a beautiful property there and a healing center, messages me and she says, Ele, we're doing this retreat. We're looking for a yoga teacher because our yoga teacher just changed her mind. She can't come anymore. You just did a yoga teacher training. Why don't you come teach yoga? And there's also plant medicine. And I was like, awesome. I need a break. I'm coming. I'm booking my flights and I'm there in 10 days, basically. that's kind of how it went, because the retreat was starting a few days later. And so I jumped on the plane. I arrived there on day 2 of the ceremony, of the retreat, sorry. Everyone is asking me, so are you a bit stressed? Are you ready for tonight? I was like, ready for tonight? What do you mean? I should be stressed for what? I mean, I can teach yoga. I've been doing that now for several weeks. And they were like, no, the ayahuasca ceremony. And in my head, I read the whole description of the retreat, of course, but for me, I was just going to have a tea around the fire and that was it. Except I didn't know that the tea had psychedelic properties. And I didn't think of Googling ayahuasca at the time because honestly, I had other things on my mind, as you can probably imagine. And so I think it was actually better for me not to have researched it or not to know so much about it, because I went into the ceremony with no expectations. By then, they told me it's good to have an intention and to connect with the spirit of the plant before you do the ceremony. And I was like, well, obviously, my intention is to heal myself from that divorce and my whole life. And like, why did I put myself in this situation? And so the ceremony begins. As you might know already, before you actually take the ayahuasca, there is first the ceremony of the sacred tobacco, where everyone speaks their intention out loud. And then there's the rape, which is a kind of coffee powder that they blow in your nose. So it goes directly to your brain, and it's very, very, very grounding. It's quite strong. So sometimes your eyes cry and you feel it directly, because I mean, it's blown through your nose. And then only you take the ayahuasca. So the ceremony begins around 9:10, but you take the ayahuasca around midnight. And so I take the ayahuasca, I connect with my intention of healing myself and understanding why I got there, what I'm going to do with my life. And I lay down because it's midnight and I'm a bit tired. So sometimes I lay down, sometimes I sit and I look at the fire. And the beautiful thing is that even though we're all in a circle and we feel connected to each other, everyone is in silence, meditating, looking at the fire, focusing on their intention. And you're not allowed to talk during the ceremony or to support others. Everyone is really in their own bubble, except that you're all together. And so I'm in my own bubble, and then suddenly I start seeing things. I start seeing a very colorful landscape with the sunset, and I start feeling nauseous. So I lay down with my arms around my belly, and I start feeling really, really bad. And then suddenly I see 3 big beings that are around me and that say, go down the tunnel and surrender. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to go down the tunnel. So I really see myself as if I was in one of these roller coasters, cars, and I really go down the tunnel that is black and that is getting darker and darker and darker. So suddenly I don't see anything anymore. And then when I'm at the bottom of that tunnel, I start being sick. So then started about 30 minutes of being very sick, of throwing up and releasing. And as an energy healer, I have now, I didn't have that at the time, but now I have an understanding that your physical body also holds on to certain energies. And when you're sick, it's not just because the ayahuasca is acid for your stomach, it's really because your physical body is releasing. It's part of the purging, it's part of the healing that the ayahuasca is doing on you. And so I'm sick for some time, and then I feel much better after that. I lay down and I see these 3 beings again that are super tall, like huge beings around me. And then it's curious because I open my eyes and I don't see them, and then I close them and I see them again. And they have a beautiful crystal that they turn on top of my heart. So I'm laying on my back then, and they turn that beautiful crystal on top of my heart, and I see all these colors, all the colors of the rainbow that are reflecting on the crystal. And they tell me that they are healing my heart from everything that it's been through and that divorce that I'm in. So I'm like, okay, awesome, thank you, keep doing that. And after that, I think I'm sick again. And then I started shaking. I started having a lot of shakings, because that is a way that my body usually responds to very strong emotions. I also have that when I have very deep and emotional conversations with certain people, or when I talk about things that really matter a lot to me and I'm vulnerable, my body is going to start shaking. It's a response from my nervous system. And so during that ceremony, I was shaking a lot. And I was actually sitting next to the partner of the shaman. And so she sees that I'm shaking so much and that I'm in a little bowl. And she's like, are you okay? I'm like, it's just very, very intense. And so I say, can I hold your hand? So So she's like, yeah, of course. So very sweet. She gives me her hand and I'm holding her hand, and it really helps me to surrender, because I'm like, she's taking care of me. She's looking after me. Sometimes she's playing songs, but then she's still taking my hand. And I feel very supported and really able to completely let go and surrender and embrace the experience completely. And then my guides give me more messages. I see a lot of very colorful visuals, animals, and I see my grandmother and my great grandfather as well. And it's a very spiritual experience, actually, where I really feel surrounded by my spirit guides, angels, my ancestors, and I feel blissful at the end. I remember at the end of the ceremony, after 2-3 hours, probably after I took the ayahuasca, I have tears of joy, because I feel lighter, I feel joyful. I have received answers for what my purpose is. I don't remember exactly what the message was at the time. I should look back at my notes because I wrote everything down. But I remember feeling so clear and so connected to myself. Like I had connected to a very deep truth that had always been inside of me, but that I wasn't able to access before. And so it was really a very intense experience physically, but it was such a beautiful experience spiritually. And so I took the ayahuasca a few more times after that. Like I told you, I did 7 times in total. And if there is some commonalities that I have seen and that I have experienced also from it, is that every person is going to have a very different experience depending on where they are at on their spiritual journey. If you are very spiritual and you're doing lots of meditation, yoga, and you're very connected to yourself and your spirit guides, and you're very open to all that, you're going to have a very spiritual experience. At least every time that I take it, I am up there with the angels. But you might also have a completely other experience. And I'm not saying that one is better than the other, because ayahuasca is going to give you the experience that you need. I have some friends who have suddenly realized during the ceremony that they had been victims of sexual abuse, and they had suppressed it so much that they had forgotten it. And grandmother Aya decided to show that to them. I have some friends who just saw numbers all around them and suddenly could see like the matrix and the energy and numbers that we are in. I have some friends who did like astral travelings, and like, so every person has a very different experience, because you're a different soul and your soul needs different things. And so the plant is going to give you what you need. But the interesting thing is that some people also almost don't have any experience, especially the first time. And that's because you can control the plant. If you're not surrendering, if you're not letting go, if you're in the expectation of it to be a certain way and that you have to cry or be sick or do that, or if you're afraid of certain things and you're controlling the plant, it can be subconsciously, you're not going to have visions or anything. You could actually almost not have any experience at all, which is quite curious, because you see other people that have such strong experiences and then you're there struggling. I have seen it almost every single time that I have done ceremonies. There is someone that is saying, I didn't have much. Like I took 1, 2, 3 shots and I didn't have much. And I also saw one day a woman that was like, okay, well, maybe that was my experience, not to have so much. And I'm just going to surrender and listen to what other people have to say. And the sun is rising and it's beautiful. We're all together around the fire. And suddenly she let go. She was like, I have no expectations anymore of what this experience is going to be. And suddenly she started having visions at 6 a.m. So 6 hours after she actually took the ayahuasca for the first time. And so it's very beautiful because Grandmother Aya is really going to give you the experience that you need to have. If she wants to show you that you are way too controlling, well, she can show that to you in that way. And it's happened to me, I think the third or fourth time that I was taking it, I took a smaller quantity and I was like, oh, I'm feeling good. Some people are sick. Usually I'm sick, but right now I'm fine. I'm not feeling much actually. And I was singing with the shaman because by then I knew all the songs. And suddenly it hit me. I was like, oh, wait, I'm actually trying to control this. I'm afraid of being sick like the last 2 times. All right, well, we're going to surrender. And so what I did is that I took very deep breath. So I inhaled 4, exhaled 8, and I really relaxed my body. And I was like, I let go. I relax into this. I'm going towards you, Grandmother Ayahuasca. Teach me and show me whatever I need to see. And then, boom, it hit me. And I was really, really sick. And then after I had lots of beautiful visions and messages. And it was, again, a beautiful experience. I mean, being sick is not really fun. I remember that I was like, oh my God, why am I doing this again? It's really horrible to be so sick. But something very interesting that's actually started happening on that time precisely is that every time I take it now, when I close my eyes, I see a huge white light on top of me. And the first time it really surprised me. I thought it was the shaman that came to me because I was just a little bowl on the floor, not, doing much with myself because I was feeling so bad. And so I thought it was the shaman that was just coming to me with his spotlight. And I open my eyes and the light is gone and the shaman is not there. And then I close my eyes again and the light is there again. So I was like, wow, I'm actually seeing the light, whatever that is, the light of source or the light of protection, or I can't really explain what it is, but it feels like a protection. It feels like a light of love, of protection, of connection. And I'm there having my experience. And every time I look up, and I really like, even with my eyes closed, but I look up to the sky, I see the light. I'm like blinded by the light. And then if I would have my head down, looking at my feet or looking at the floor, I'm saying looking, but really I'm with my eyes closed, like facing the floor, I would say, then I would see all the colorful shapes and visuals, very geometric visuals of animals, frogs, snakes, trees, landscapes, sun, moon. It's a very it's a journey into nature, into the energies of nature. But every time I would, again, face the sky, I would see the lights. I've shared that with a few people, and I don't know anyone else who has that. So if you have that, I would love to know. It would be fun to do a little survey. But yeah, I'm not going to go into details of like my 7 experiences unless you guys want to know that. But I don't really see the point. But basically, my conclusion really of these experiences is that every time I journey with Grandmother Ayahuasca, I journey to my soul. For me, it's a silencing of the ego and a deep, deep, deep connection with myself and with the spiritual world. Like I said, I usually see spirit guides, angels, my ancestors, or I get to travel in the cosmos. One day I got shown planet Earth and all the energy field of planet Earth and all the love and positive energy that was sent to planet Earth and how it was circulating on the Earth. Like I could really see it and visualize it when I close my eyes now. I can still see it. It was so beautiful to see how a lot of extraterrestrial being, and by extraterrestrial, I mean that are not from the planet, but everyone has a different definition of that word, really. I could really see how they were taking care of the Earth, of our planetary system, and sending energy to the Earth, who has a whole consciousness to herself. And it was so beautiful. Another time I journeyed with Isis, and Isis gave me a very clear message and energy update, and that was also really beautiful. Another time I had a whole experience with a frog, which was probably because I did the Kambo ceremony in the afternoon, so I still had the energy of the frog inside of me. And the frog was showing me that I was a huge, strong tree, and the frog was dancing inside the tree. It was really fun and beautiful as well. And so every time I took ayahuasca with a very clear intention, I had an answer to that intention. Sometimes I was really sick, sometimes I was not. I have learned to also dose it, not make it too intense for myself, because, like I shared at the beginning, I'm a very sensitive being and I respond to these substances very strongly. And so, if you're listening to this episode and you're wondering, is ayahuasca my next move and what can I expect? I would really invite you to come back to what I said at the beginning and to check with your intention. Why do you want that? Is ayahuasca really the answer? And if you go to ayahuasca, make sure to find the right shaman and make sure to integrate your experience. Because if you're just doing it like that for the experience, for the fun, because it's trendy and people talk about it and you don't want to die stupid, so you want to try. Well, Grandmother Ayahuasca might show you that you're not respecting her energy and her power. So you might have a strong experience. Who knows? I don't know what she has to show you. Something that I would like to finish this episode with is that I know that many of you are on a spiritual journey, trying to reconnect with their soul, with their purpose, and really be their most authentic self. And while ayahuasca is a beautiful tool on the beginning of your spiritual journey to awaken, when you start realizing that the world is energy, that you have this power inside of you, that you have a purpose, that you don't need to fit in and don't need to follow the matrix and the corporate world, and that you can just be yourself and be paid for it. When you start to realize all that, ayahuasca is a really beautiful tool. But when you are further on the path, when you're really connected to your intuition, and then maybe you start to realize that you have some psychic gifts and some psychic abilities, and you start to realize how powerful you are, you actually don't need ayahuasca anymore. And sometimes doing an ayahuasca ceremony can also be detrimental to your journey and your growth. Because what the ayahuasca does is that it's only releasing, it's not the right way of saying it, but basically it's a mix of a vine and a leaf, and it's mashed together, and those two ingredients together release DMT in your body. And that DMT, it's a hormone that is actually helping you open your third eye and see things. That's why you're having all these visions. But when you're further on a spiritual journey, your third eye is already open. And you have DMT inside of you, in your pineal gland, which is the third eye, and in other places in your body. And so you don't always need ayahuasca to have a psychedelic trip or to have answers or to connect to your soul. I find myself now at a place where when I'm in a really deep meditation, I'm seeing the shapes, I'm seeing the colors, I'm receiving the messages. I'm having a small ayahuasca ceremony on my own, sitting on the floor, meditating in my office. And so if that is your situation as well, I mean, even if you're not seeing the colors and the shapes and everything, you don't actually need an ayahuasca ceremony to go further on your journey. I think it would be more beneficial for you to actually learn to trust yourself and have that experience with yourself, not depending on an external tool. because if you have too much DMT in your body, it can also, really be detrimental to you physically, energetically, and spiritually. So this is really my experience with grandmother Aya. I hope this is answering your questions, or this is, helping you see why you would or wouldn't do a ceremony. I don't know if I'm going to do it again. Every year, my friend invites me to her property every time they do a retreat. And I might one day do a ceremony again, but really with the clear intention of, taking just a little bit, not going too far into the experience, because I don't want to overflow my body with DMT. And as I said, I'm so sensitive that I don't need that much anyway. But I am not seeking it. I think that if I need to do it again, the plant is going to call me again and I will feel the calling. Also, about feeling the calling, something interesting happens as soon as you decide to do the ceremony. As soon as you say yes to Grandmother Aya, energetically, something is starting to shift inside of you. The plant is preparing you. So in your life, certain things might happen, certain issues might come up, certain bad memories that you were trying to forget might come back to you in your daily life or in your dreams. Because energetically, things begin when you say yes, not just when you're taking the plant. And so as soon as you say yes, be very mindful of everything that is happening in your life. Be very mindful of what you're going through, your emotions. Keep a journal, start your diet, eat healthy, and get ready for the beautiful encounter that you're going to have. And that is actually true for everything in life, whether you say yes to getting into more involved into a relationship or buying a house or the process of manifesting your dream house. As soon as you're ready and you decide to do that, or as soon as you decide to step into a new role, a new identity, or sign up to a coaching program, everything begins when you say yes to yourself. Not just when you're physically seeing the guy that you've been wanting to see, or on the first call of the coaching program. It's happened so many times that I've worked with clients and they said yes, they sent me the first payment, and then suddenly money started showing up in their life, or issues started coming up in their relationship or in their team, in their business. And we hadn't even started. And that's because as soon as you say yes to yourself, things are shifting. The universe is aligning to your new vibration and your new commitment. So that is really something that is true for everything in life, because we are beings of energy. All right. Well, thank you so much for, again, inviting me to your private space and listening to my story, my experience, my recommendations with ayahuasca. And if you could be so kind to leave me a review on Apple or on Spotify to celebrate with me the 1-year anniversary of the Sacred Roots podcast, it would make me so, so, so happy. And I thank you from the bottom of up from I'm thanking you so much that I'm losing my words. I thank you from the bottom of my heart for taking the time to do that, for taking the time to listen to me, and also for taking the time for yourself. And, today I talked a lot about integration. This is the same for this podcast. If you listen to this podcast and you don't integrate anything, I'm not going to say it's a waste of your time, because you're going to have learned something. And it's always interesting to learn things. But really, you could make it so much more powerful if you actually integrated all the things that you learned. So maybe I can finish this podcast episode by inviting you to choose one thing that you've learned in this podcast that you're going to implement in your life. And if you want to let me know what that is, you can share that on social media and tag me Ele de Poisson and at Sacred Roots Podcast. So let me know the one thing that you're going to integrate in your life and that you've learned in this episode, because I did talk about ayahuasca, but I talked about a lot of other things that are actually very valuable for your everyday life as well. Let me know what that is. Thank you so much, and I will see you in the next episode. Take care.